Welcome back to the ETF Inspector. It is Tuesday, July 22nd, about 7:30 at night, and this will be our video covering YieldMax, weekly paying funds, Ulti, the Ultra Option Income Strategy Fund. If you're new here, this one's getting real popular, getting a whole lot more coverage on YouTube, and LFGY, the crypto industry and tech portfolio option income ETF. As always, a reminder, I'm on X at ETF_inspector1. I post all kinds of things related to the videos, basically, as well as reposting the declarations from YieldMax and the ones from Roundhill for videos that I cover. Getting real close to that 2,000 subscriber mark, so if you haven't clicked it yet, go ahead and click the button, please. It's free for you. It doesn't actually equal anything for earnings. Advertisers pay based on views, so but it just helps build the channel. All right, we start off. We download the intraday trade funds after 5:30 at night. We go down. You know it's Ulti, so we've got the most trades. A lot of putting money to work, but good bit of rolling as well. And then LFGY. If Ulti's the most, LFGY is usually the second most. So I decided to pick up, the most work when I came up with these funds. Big picture, we'll look at it. Lots of red on the screen for Ulti, but they ended up recovering for the day. I did post asking if anybody bought that dip. We haven't seen prices like that in a while, so I got lucky and bought at 6.16 with the low at 6.15. So I'm pretty happy with that, especially for the fact that it turned around and went right back up. Lots of people been talking in the comments about wanting lower prices. Did you take advantage, or did you get scared? So a decent amount of red, probably over 50%. LFGY, on the other hand, had a little bit better of a day. Good bit of green on their side, you saw from the thumbnail. But let's take a look more in depth at how things did. We'll get to the holdings second. The trades are more exciting for us. So for starters, we put money to work, right? Because yesterday we had almost 20 million more shares purchased. New money coming into the fund, so we got to put that to work. Money doesn't get to sit around over here. So they bought more of every stock that we already hold within the fund, as well as we bought shares of Vertiv Holdings now, where we were just trading options on them. And if you've been around long enough, we used to have shares of them. So we've come full circle. We're back to having shares of Vertiv. But we spent a lot of money today. And then we'll go through the individual stocks to see what happened. So if there's orange here, that kind of tells us to look at the orange over here, under construction, right? Changing things out on the page. Shows what got rolled. So even when they're rolling, there's a roll for that underlying. It doesn't necessarily mean it's everything. So I highlight what is covered. AAOI, closing out their sold calls for this week and still selling for a closer price this week. $1.1 million credit there. So they're being aggressive. The stock dropped, so they lowered their strike to collect more premium. AMD, we don't own shares, and we closed out of our options. So if you saw the line crossing out AMD on the thumbnail, that's what's going on. We had a debit call spread. We sold the calls that we were long, and we bought to close the calls that were sold further out of the money. Overall, we call that a profit because it's over. We're done. We closed out the trade. 1.1 million. AppLovin, again, getting aggressive with the stock price dropping, closing out our calls that are sold further out of the money and selling them closer to the money to collect more premium. 1.1 million collected. ASTS, AST Space Mobile, right? Closing out the 61s, selling. So as far as these are concerned, selling 55s. Then we put the new shares to work by selling new options to go along with them. Overall, $1.5 million credit. Coinbase, same thing, closing out 44s and 45s this week, still staying within the week, selling 42.50s and 44s. Now that was something different, right? So they bought to close these 45s, sold them as 44s, then they bought to close the 44s and sold them as 42.50s. They actually lost on that little in-between trade, if you're interested, because we sold them for $1.24, then we bought them back for $1.83. So we lost about 60 cents a share on that, but then finally ended out selling them for $4.22. So overall win. And we sold more options to go with the new shares that we purchased. Every stock in the fund, we at least sold new options to go with the new shares, so I don't have to repeat that every time. $539,000 credit. First Solar, that's the case. No rolling, no closeouts, just selling new options. $39,000 profit or credit. Robinhood, closing out these 111s and selling 107s, still within the same week. $629,000 profit. Innodata, depending on how you say it. $129,000 from selling new options to go with the new shares. IonQ, taking advantage of that drop in price. Wish I didn't sell my put a day or two ago because I could have got a whole lot more for it today. But closing out the 47.50s and selling 455s. Then turning around and selling those, or buying those 455s and selling 44. Oh my goodness, 45s, 47.50s, 45.50s. So they did make a little money on that intraday trade because they sold them for 47, bought them back for 30. So they made 17 cents a share on the in between before the final sale at 44. 1.4 million credit. Mara Holdings. So didn't close out or roll anything necessarily, but they adjusted their puts. Okay, so they sold their 17s, and I'll call it roll anyway, rolled them up to 18s. So what we're doing, the stock went up, so we sold the put that was lower and brought it up higher. So now if the stock drops, that put becomes valuable sooner. We're kind of locking in that higher value for our stock. So that cost us $97,000. MicroStrategy, selling options to go with the new shares, $16,000 credit. Nebius, closing out. Some of these, I'm not familiar with them yet. Is that a $55 stock? Oops. It is, or roughly. Closing out the 55s, the 56s, and selling 53s and 54s, all still for this Friday, $409,000 credit. ServiceNow, $63,000 from selling options for the new shares. Oklo, $1.2 million credit on the roll, closing out 67s and 69s and selling 64s and 66s, and also adjusting the puts as well. Like we said, $1.2 million. Palantir, buying to close the 155s, 157.50s, and the 160s, and selling. Okay, so here's another one, right? So we bought to close the 160s and 157.50s. We sold 155s. We turned around and bought to close 155s in a different portion. Made 20 cents on the in between. Sold 150s and 152.50s. $375,000. Sorry for all that. Reddit, here's another one that went up, so we just adjusted our put. We sold our put and bought a new one closer to the money to lock in our higher value, higher price, but that cost us $679,000. Think of it as insurance. Rigetti, we collected $177,000. Closing out 170s or 17s and 1750s and selling 1650s. This one we did roll to the following week. You can see 725 moving to 81. We also did some still in the same week. This was with the new. No, this is the 1750s. we closed them and turned them into 1650s for this week. The 17s, we closed them, turned them into 1650s for next week. SMCI, did I say that value? 177,000 collected. SMCI, $638,000 credit. Closing out 55s and 56s, selling 52s. Still staying within the same week. Power, or New Scale Power, 1.6 million collected. Closing out this week's calls and still selling within the same week. I don't think we did any intraday trades there, so we've got 46s and 47s now where we had 51s and 52s. Tempest AI, 12,000 collected from new options with the new shares. Tesla, similar. The stock went up, so we adjusted our puts closer. Right, sold our 295s and bought 300s. We locked in $5 more per share. Upstart, same thing. Right, we moved our puts up closer. Sold the 70s, bought 71s, or bought 73s in that case, and then we also put the new money to work with new options. So that cost us $72,000. Vertiv Holdings, we had a debit call spread, or two of them. We closed those out. So we bought to close the short calls, we sold the long calls, and then we turned around, and since we bought shares, we started a collar position on them where we sold 128s for next week, and we bought puts at 110. $2.9 million collected on that. That's because a lot of it was closing out a winning debit call spread. And finally, Vistra Corp, I believe it went up, so we adjusted our put closer to the money, locking in that higher value. We sold 160s and bought 172.50, so we were able to lock in an extra $12.50 per share. That's nice. $336,000. All said and done, great trading day. $14 million profit or credit. So we are up over $18 million collected this week in option income. If we keep this up, we might see our first week where we, in a long time, where we're getting paid based off of the income as opposed to return on capital. But big wins like that come with decreases in share values. So we're down about $11.5 million on our value. We saw it in the thumbnail and in the stock lineup where we noticed that a lot of our stocks were in the red. Applied Optoelectronics was the biggest loser, down nearly 7%. You can see the positions that were rolled as they got far enough out of the money. They still have the 30s in play for this week, 1,400 contracts that are almost 14% out of the money. AMD, we closed this all out, so we're done with AMD. AppLovin dropped 4.4%. They rolled all the options, so we don't need to talk about them. Same with AST Space Mobile, up 0.75%, but it was still cheap enough, far enough out of the money that we closed that for a win. Coinbase down 2.2%. We closed our options that were further out of the money and rolled them closer. We still have 440s that are 8.8% out of the money for this week and next week. First Solar was up nearly 1%. They were already in the money. They went further in the money on these 175s and 177.50s, but the 182.50s is the largest position, 2,600 contracts. They are still 1.4% out of the money. And if you look over here, you can see how much the value increased from each underlying within the fund, how much value it added to the fund based off the change for the day. Robinhood down almost 2.4%. Okay, that makes sense. I was going to say, generally they will roll the ones further out of the money, but in this case, they rolled these because they are still within this week, whereas the ones still in play that are about 11% out of the money are for next week, 113s. So they didn't want to buy to close them as they still had plenty of time value. INOData, INOD, down 2.75%. No action taken. They've got 50s and 55s that are 7.6 and 18.5% out of the money. IonQ down 5.6%. They rolled the options that were further out of the money, but the calls that are at the 47 strike are still in play. They're 12% out of the money. Mara Holdings was the biggest increase here today, up over 5.5%. Still out of the money, so that's nice. We've got 20s and 2050s that are 0.6 and 3.1% out of the money. The only adjustment made was these $17 puts were sold, and we bought, I believe it was 18. We raised our put price up closer, so we're locking in the higher value. MicroStrategy up a fraction, didn't have much of an effect. Overall, these will have decreased in value on the day because there's so much extrinsic value, time value here. So another day ticked away. They're 3.1 and 4.3% out of the money. NBIS down 2.6%. They rolled the sold calls to closer, still within the week, and they left the puts alone. So we don't need to go any further on that one. ServiceNow up 0.28%. 1,000 is the strike price. They're 3.88% out of the money at 962. Oklo dropped 1.89%. They did a complete roll of all positions. So when we talk about that, just in case you're new here, everything on the left side of the colored part of the screen here is from the holdings update that comes out new each day in the morning. So in the evening, we're able to get all their trades. We input the information, we talk about it, and then the following morning, everything over here comes out new, and I'm able to update the spreadsheet. I could manually enter it. It would take forever, and plus it would not line up in the same order that the download comes out, so I'd have to change it anyway. So that's all we're going to say about that. Palantir dropped almost 1.8%. It was odd. They rolled just about everything, but they left these 140 puts where they were. So no need to talk about those. They're not in play anymore. And it's surprising because they're not that far out of the money. So if they rolled Palantir, did they stay within the week? They did. So they stayed within the week. So they're liking to play those nice and tight. Reddit down 0.29%. No action taken on any of the sold calls. That helped with these being in the money for a slight drop. As far as winning, obviously, we are fine if the stocks never go down. But just as far as winning the trades, dropping to bring them out of the money makes it easier to win the trades. 145s are 0.59% out of the money. 150s are 2.84% out of the money. And then we have 155s for the following Friday, 6.2% out of the money. The only thing we adjusted was the put on next week's option combination or collar. We adjusted those 126s higher. Rigetti down 4%. They rolled just about everything except the 1650s. There's 20,000 contracts there. 6.9% out of the money. They're still in play for this week. SMCI down 3.18%. Total roll, other than they left their $46 puts, they left those alone. New Scale Power down 2.18%. Rolled both the sold calls and the $42 puts. They left the 40s and the 41s alone. Tempest AI up 5.29%. Fortunately, they were way out of the money, so we were not capped. We were able to enjoy that huge increase, $2.9 million increase in our value without it hurting our options at all. We're still winning those at the same time. Tesla up 1.1%. All we did was adjusted the protective put higher. We went from 295 up to 300, so we locked in another $5 of value in our stock. Upstart up 4.32%. Same thing. We took our lowest put. We bought it to close, and we sold it to close, and we bought a new one at a higher price. All right, Vertiv. All of this got rolled. This would be orange too, but since we didn't have shares before, I didn't have a placekeeper for the share price. So as of tomorrow, we will now have a line with shares for Vertiv and a collar strategy as opposed to this debit spread that got closed out. And then finally, Vistra Corp up 0.44%. Only action taken was to roll the puts higher up, locking in more value. They've got 192.50s and 195 sold for this week that are still 1.8 and 3.1% out of the money. I think I forgot to mention that portion up here on Upstart. The 80s are, they're 1 penny out of the money. So that's a perfect price to sit there all week. And then the 82s are 2.5% out of the money. And again, on Tesla, when they only rolled the put up, the calls that are sold are 3.8 and 4.6% out of the money. So that is how we came with our $11.5 million decrease in value. We mentioned it at the beginning of this video. There was a whole lot of more money pouring into the fund, but that comes from the holdings. So that came from the morning download. So that's money that poured in yesterday. I would venture to guess that we're going to have a huge increase from today when we download tomorrow's, because everybody's been waiting for that dip, and you can tell everybody bought it. It went right back up. So we're probably going to have a huge number there, maybe enough to take us up to 2 billion. We'll see. Okay, that's it for Ulti. If you're just an Ulti only person, thanks for watching. If you want to stick around just for fun, please do. There's a dad joke at the end. I'll say this one's better than yesterday's. All right, LFGY, our crypto one. They play this a lot different. It's not a collar strategy. They sell calls. They sell covered calls. Sometimes they buy a call further out of the money to protect that in case it goes past it, from the amount they would have to pay to close it. Other times they don't. But they do a whole lot more low-level trades. So not enough to close out positions, just some buying and selling, putting money to work. So we don't go through stock by stock. We only go if we get a complete swap out. And we get the first one at MSTR, MicroStrategy, even though it's a small one. For some reason, they just had 5 contracts. What's this? At 475. So they bought to close those and rolled them to 450. Overall, along with putting some new money to work, $2,300 credit. And then NU Holdings. This one was a bigger one. $14 strike. They bought to close those for a penny. That's real nice. And they sold for 30 cents next week at 13. $73,000 credit. That was really it for complete swap outs of positions. It resulted overall, everything combined, for $121,000 in profit. So we're having a pretty bleh kind of week so far. Very small moves, nothing to make us a lot of money. Option income wise, nothing to make us money value wise. So if we keep going like this for 3 more days, it's gonna be pretty difficult to come up with an estimate outside of paying the IV. But we will see. Okay, stocks within the fund. There's less here, so we can get through it quicker. Where the first stock over in Ulti was the big loser, the first one here in LFGY is the big winner, up over 6.5% on BitDeer. That took their 1450s in the money, but they did not take action there. They're 1% in the money, and they've got 15s that are 2.3% out of the money. Keep in mind when we start looking at changes in market values and trading profits and losses, they're going to be almost a factor of 10 different, because where there was 1.7 billion in Ulti, there's 180 million assets under management here in LFGY. So we're not talking apples and apples here. Clean Spark up 3.63%. 1350s are 5% out of the money still, expiring Friday. Coinbase down over 2.2%. 5% out of the money on those 425s, but the larger position at 450 are 11.2% out of the money. Core Scientific up over 1.5%. 3.8 and 7.6% out of the money. A whole lot more at the farther one out, the 1450s, 6,500 contracts. Circle Internet Group, this one's still wild, making huge moves. Today's huge move was down 8.23%, back under 200. 27% out of the money on these $252.50 strike calls. Galaxy Digital up over 6%. Still sitting safe. So we were uncapped there as far as we took all that value increase without it hurting us on our options. They're still 3% out of the money for this week. And these are this week as well. The 3350s are 15% out of the money. GameStop up about 0.25%. They're 1% in the money, but no action was taken. They're going to let some more time go by. Robinhood down 2.39%, 14.8 and 17.8% out of the money. Generally, they would be rolling these by now, but they're already rolled out till next week, so they're going to have a decent amount of time value built in, even if they're far out of the money. And also, Robinhood's on the maybe we won't call that high IV, medium high IV. HUD 8 Corp up over 0.25%, still 7.5 and 9.8% out of the money, but the closer ones, the 23s, are the important ones. We've got 4,300 compared to 49 contracts. iBit had a good day, up 2.25%, increased our value by 370,000. There's no options there. Just whether it goes up or down. Mara Holdings up over 5.5%, big jump for them. Again, if you've heard me talking, I was selling puts on these guys a couple of weeks ago for like 12, and now they're at 20. Still out of the money though, so fortunately these were way out of the money because we took that 5.5% increase, and we're still 5.6% out of the money on those calls, expiring Friday at 21. MBTX, I believe they were up today. Still 4% out of the money on this credit call spread. So as long as that stays under 295, that'll get closed out as a nice easy win. The put spread, increasing did not help the debit put spread, so they went further out of the money, 18%. And on that one, you want the 230 in the money to win that trade. Mercado Libre up about 0.25%, still 3.5% out of the money on those 2470s. MicroStrategy up a fraction. We said that on Ulti as well. The only thing they rolled was the very small position, 5 contracts. Sorry, they have 450s and 462.50s, roughly evenly split. 5.5 and about 8.5% out of the money. NU Holdings down 0.8%. They rolled, this was the roll right after MicroStrategy. They rolled the 14s further out of the money. They still have 13s in play for this week that are 1.7% out of the money. NVIDIA down over 2.5%. 175s are 4.7% out of the money. Opera or Oprah, somebody laughed at me yesterday when I said that, down 1.4%. Their 20s are 14.3% out of the money. I would not be surprised if we see them getting rolled in the next day or so. They were 1750 before things started today, so a whole nother day ticked by and it dropped. So they're going to probably be single digits and getting closed out. PayPal up over 1.5%, 79s are sold out till next Friday, and they are almost 4% out of the money. Riot Platforms up 1.78%. We got 1450s, large positions, 6,800. They're 1.6% out of the money. And then we have 1650s, also for this week, 15.6% out of the money. Finally, block. Now, they had me confused the other day, and now they switched it around. This was the one where they had a put spread on it, but they've traded that out back for calls again. So up 1.29%. Their 81s are 2.4% out of the money, and their 84s are 6.2% out of the money. It's really odd that the 287 goes with this. Unless this is they bought 83s and sold 84s. So yeah, technically I've got this backwards. This is a debit call spread right here. So we want to watch that one, not that one. So they bought the 83s, sold the 84s. So as high as you go above 83 without breaking 84 makes the 83 the most valuable without having to pay the close the 84. So odd strategy there for where it's at right now, but today's increase helped. So all in all, that turned into an $825,000 increase in value. Sorry, I feel like I lost a lot of steam as I'm getting through this. There was a small increase, small compared to what we've been seeing in Ulti. 100,000 new shares in LFGY yesterday, bringing us up to 4,625,000 outstanding shares. The NAV and the closing price, the only reason they're off is because the NAV is off of holding before we had all the changes in the market today. So after the increase, it would bring it up closer. All right, that's all I have for you. Got a dad joke of the day before we go. So thank you for watching. Thank you. I got every Tuesday they give us on YouTube. You get your I don't even know if I can find it quick. Otherwise, I'll let you go. But you get like a week in review. I don't see it. It's easier on your phone. But tells you how many likes and shares. There was over 1,000 likes last week. I think there was something around like 50 shares, so people sharing the videos. I don't remember what the comment count was. It was a lot, but I appreciate all of you. I look forward to talking to you guys in the chats, and I like making the videos for you. So I'm having fun. I hope you guys are having fun, and I appreciate all the support. So, dad joke of the day. Why should you never fall for a tennis player? Come on, you dads. You should be able to figure this one out. This is an easy tennis joke. Why should you never fall for a tennis player? Because love means nothing to them. All right, that's all I got for you. Tomorrow morning, we've got our distribution declarations coming out, so I will post them as soon as I see them, and then we will talk about them. We'll talk about the percentages. I mean, we already know who's going to win, right? Ulti wins pretty much every week, so we'll see how it goes. But make sure you tune in tomorrow, and we'll talk about it. Are we getting 10 cents, 11 cents? I forgot. You guys like to get that recap at the end. Ulti, trading-wise, took a credit of $14 million, and share value decreased by about $11.5 million. And LFGY had a credit of $121,000 on the trading side and an increase in value of $825,000 on the share value side. So will we get 50 cents from LFGY, 11 from Ulti? We'll see tomorrow. All right, that's it. Good night. Have a great day, and good luck trading tomorrow.